Hi there! My name is Lana, and I want to say thank you so much for this beautiful forum where everyone can come together and share amazing tips and ideas, because we're all trying to find time in the day to fulfill and get a whole lot of stuff done and still have healthy options to provide for our friends, our family, our loved ones, especially our children, right? So I'm going to start out by saying that I am the proud auntie of several grandchildren, not grandchildren, listen to me, I almost sound like my grandmother now. I am the proud auntie of a couple of my sweetest little nieces and nephews, my youngest sister, and then I have an older brother and sister who also have several children. So I have nieces and nephews, and I also have cousins that have children as well. And so I remember what it was like to be a child and how I had my own little comfort foods as a child. So I would reach for certain things as a result of wanting to feel the nurturing and the comfort that maybe I wasn't always feeling from my family. You know, if I didn't get enough attention as a child, I know that I would want sweets. I can see this now as an adult. I didn't see it necessarily when I was a child. But I do remember the fixation on certain foods, or the fact that whatever it was you could reach for that was quickly available sometimes, and especially when you're hungry. So I want to share some of my tips, because for myself, I know even for me as an adult, I try to ensure that I always have something to take with me, because there's not always a good option when I go out. If I go out with friends and I meet up with them, I have to consider, is there going to be the food that's going to nourish me the best available where I'm going? Just like with gatherings, I have my own food allergies alone with that, and suffered all of my childhood as well as into my adulthood, not realizing that I was allergic to gluten and wheat. And as a little girl, and I don't know if y'all have children that have these same kind of symptoms, but I've seen this with my niece, for example, where when you're on the toilet, okay, and I just want to share this from my personal experience, because I think it's a different perspective as well. When we forget what it was like to be a child, we don't necessarily relate that well to children. But I absolutely adore, and I love to play with them. So, you know, I try to be as attentive as I can, even if they're not my own, which I could still have children, you just never know. And so I like to learn as much as I possibly can, as well as this is the beautiful exchange, is that I'm hoping to learn a lot from y'all, and I want to share some of my little tips. So when I was younger, and I didn't know what was going on, but I used to get a lot of cramping in my belly and constipation and pains, but I didn't know that's what it was. I really didn't suffer with a lot of diarrhea. There was only a few handful of times that I can tell you that I remember feeling so bad it was diarrhea, and it was very rare. Most of the time I wasn't going to the bathroom. In fact, I was a little embarrassed to admit that my mom didn't necessarily teach me how to properly wipe myself after going to the bathroom. And I was really, really embarrassed when my auntie found me in the bathroom and had to teach me, and I was crying, and it was just an experience I would never want to see another child go through as a result of my own. But doubled over in pain, sitting on the toilet to go to the bathroom was like normal for me most of my childhood, well, all of my childhood, and then even into my adulthood. And it turned out it wasn't until over almost 8 years ago that I realized it was because I was allergic to gluten and wheat, especially the wheat. For me, wheat is like death, and especially, you know, people talk about wheatgrass. I can't touch any of that stuff, and I have to be very concerned with reading my labels, which is why I'm very sensitive to children, because of my experiences. And anything that you can share with me, that will help me as well, because you just don't know. And I never say never. So, you know, a lot of people say, oh, you probably don't want to have children. I'm like, I don't know. I've never given up that possibility. So what happened is that I learned that all of this time it was about the digestion. And, you know, we store a lot of emotion in our stomachs, and children especially are very sensitive, and we don't give them enough credit for how intelligent they are and how much more aware they are, because I've learned over these years that my inner child, has a lot more wisdom to share with me as an adult that when I tap into my inner child, I can actually see what I was more aware of as a child that I didn't know was so wise, right? And so I think children have so much to teach us as a result of what I can look back upon. And my parents didn't, they didn't talk about food allergies back then, did they? I mean, we're talking like I'm 43 now. So if you look back into the late 70s, 80s, they didn't talk about wheat and gluten and celiac and all that. They didn't talk about the soy and the dairy and all this stuff as far as the things that it does to us as humans. It's not meant for our human consumption, most of it, right? And there's been so much genetic modification. So for me, I lived in Naples, Italy, and Italy, they know about celiac disease. They subsidize their people. They give them a stipend every month if you have celiac disease to offset the cost of buying products, because we're talking about the land of pasta and bread, right? Deve mangiare il pane e la pasta. Hey, cosa stai facendo? You have to eat. You have to eat, It's like this sign of abundance. There's this old idea that if you have a nice round belly, that makes you profitable and makes you abundant. But it's actually not healthy, and we know that. We're trying to learn the best we can. And so when we know better, we can do better, correct? Especially as parents. And I know most of you are probably so busy. That's the beauty of this group. I love, love, love the idea that people are coming together and sharing what you can put together that's accessible and easy to create, simplistic, and nourishing, right? So, I get excited about food anyway. And I'm also a yoga instructor, so I teach Hatha Vinyasa, but more so I focus on the Kundalini yoga as taught by Yogi Bhajan. And one of the beautiful things that he taught was the graceful woman carries her food. And that as women, we are householders. And so therefore, we tend to the hearth of the home. And it's, if you look back through history, everything revolves around food. Everything's about pouring our love into it, keeping the hearth burning, right? And so the heart of the home is going to come from the wife, the mother, the nurturer, right? Because we're very much multitaskers. We know we can do it all because our mind can multitask. And he even talks about how it's not a negative thing to say that women are multitaskers. In fact, that's a compliment because we can do a lot. I mean, we house this seed, we actually nourish, we provide. See, even puppies, yes. And so as a result of that, we have this innate ability to hold the space and create sacredness in the home. And so what we provide is always going to come from our heart within our home. And the beauty is that we're holding that space for our loved ones. And it's not a negative thing. He even says that men are multifaceted. Women are multifaceted, men are single-minded, single-faceted, which you hear these little negative connotations that men are single-minded or like it's a negative thing, but actually it's a very good thing because meditation is single-minded focus. And so I don't know if you've ever noticed this, but when you give a man a task, you want to leave him to the task and not have a conversation. Because as women, we think we can do that, and we can. But it's really beneficial to allow someone, especially in that capacity, to do that and then discuss the next thing. That's just a little tidbit that I learned in my trainings. But it's beautiful because I absolutely adore, for years that I was having to carry my food, it almost sounded like, I had a little bit of animosity for the idea that I would have to carry my food. But then when I heard that the graceful woman carries her food, I found that even more, wow, that kind of like lifted my head and opened my heart a little bit more to, it's actually a compliment. And so when we teach our children, for example, the fact that they will carry their own food, and a lot of these younger children are very intelligent. They already know. They already know. They're not interested in eating meat. They will eat the most nourishing, satiating foods that will provide that vibrancy because they're so sharp. They're so sharp. And it's impressive, isn't it? And you're like, wow, this little wise being. And they're here to teach us. Because when we watch the children, they're teaching us through their expressions. And they're reminding us to stay youthful, right? I think I heard something not long ago, just a reminder, because I'd heard this before, about how when you hang around younger people, it keeps you youthful, right? So that keeps your inner spark, your inner child alive to play and to be just like children, right? So I have a couple little secrets I'm going to share with everyone that I myself do make. The other night I prepared a banana cream pie, all raw vegan, all just a few ingredients, and so yummy. Like this is my passion. I absolutely love food, and I love to share my recipes, and the spreading love really is what it is to me, because again, it's that hearth. It's extension of the arms are extensions of the heart. And so that's like embracing, right? Thank you, Megan. Thank you. Yes, it's quite yummy. I made little banana cream tartlets with the leftover crumble that I had used from the prior. So I'm going to share that with y'all. I'm going to actually prepare one to show you. And that's a great little, depending on if you want your children to consume chocolate, because chocolate could be an excitable thing for children. I would recommend personally to try to get them on the carob as opposed to the caffeinated chocolate. That might be a little bit calmer because some people's children are already excitable and you don't necessarily want to give them something that's going to stimulate them more. We don't need to be stimulating ourselves. So I myself love carob. And raw carob, it's already naturally sweet, so you don't even have to add a lot of sweeteners. And something, again, if you're somebody who suffers with digestive issues, carob has a high magnesium content, which we're all a little depleted of. And so with that high magnesium, it'll help, again, magnesium is calming for the muscles, the mind, and the digestion, right? It helps smooth the move. It's like what I like to say. And that and the fact that bananas can be used for so much, right? Making a smoothie, and then you can put them in little molds and make it fun so they have little popsicles available when they come home from school, for example, or in the evening, because they say that if you have bananas before you go to bed, it's actually calming too. So it's a sweet treat, but it's not an unhealthy one. It's a healthy one that's also going to aid in them going to bed. So it can be kind of a ritualistic thing, especially with children at night, because sometimes they want something, like they've already eaten dinner, and you don't want to give them something chocolatey that's going to keep them up or something that's going to excite them, but just a simple banana smoothie made into these little popsicles. You don't even have to put anything else but the banana. And they don't even realize, unless you want to put a banana on a stick in the freezer. And that's an alternative as well. There's so many cool things you can do, right? And so, yeah, this is fun. And I say thank you because I didn't know if I could actually go in here and introduce myself this way. But just a quick behind the scenes on me. I spent over 10 years in the Air Force. I traveled a lot. I've been exposed to different cultures, and also the beauty of also watching my friends' children's growing up and really enjoying the expression of these young beings and how they show up for us to teach us. So without further ado, I'm going to bring out the banana cream tartlets. So I had prepared these the other night, and I actually made little swirls with chocolate on top of the banana cream just because I have to have my chocolate fix. When I was younger, I was the strawberries and cream girl. And now as an adult, I can honestly say I prefer dark chocolate. So I went from being very big on the sweets to being, I like the bitters now. And I realized, with all of my teachings, all my trainings, all the research I've done, sugar is really the most addictive thing for us as humans. It's even more addictive than cocaine, they say. So I try to stay, as we all know, close to source, whole foods, plant-based, and stay away from a lot of the refined sugars. I mean, I brew kombucha and I use sugar for that, but I don't really, it's not my option, my choice. It's not optimal in my diet. So what I like to do is use dates. And so the beauty is I love these rubber molds. Hey, let's face it. Anything that's not going to crash and burn on the floor, right? And ladies, I know as moms, and I talk to my sister about this all the time, the last thing you need is this crack, if this was glass hitting the ground and, you got children around the house and you got to worry about the glass and them stepping on it. Heck, I have to worry about that for myself. And I can be pretty darn klutzy, right? But I embrace my klutziness. So what I did with these, and actually these pop out so perfectly. Check this out. Because actually there's a little bit of coconut oil in the crust. Isn't that beautiful? So I'm actually gonna prepare one so you can all see. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful? Perfectly molded into the cupcakes. So I made this crust with almonds. They're raw, they're sprouted, and then they're dehydrated. They're organic. I use almonds, dates, salt, coconut flakes, coconut oil, and I just basically put them in the food processor, crushed them up. Isn't that pretty? I have so much fun with this. And so, nice and square on a plate. And then I made this banana cream. And in the banana cream, I did put some flavors. But the easiest thing you can do is I used coconut meat and bananas. Blend them up, create that, pour it into the mold, stick it in the freezer, which is what I did. And then I made the chocolate sauce. Now again, I use chocolate or raw cacao, but you can use raw carob or even roasted carob. Again, it's going to be a healthier, maybe a less stimulative alternative for children, so they're not bouncing off the ceilings. I know for myself, I've always been very high energy, whether I was a child or I was as an adult. So for me, I understand the stimulants, but I also understand the crash and burn too. In fact, thinking about it makes me tired. And so I actually have these amazing bananas. These are so yummy. Have you ever had a Manzano apple banana? Don't be scared by the black, because that just means they're ripened. And so what I like to do, these taste literally, these really are apples and banana flavored. And so what I'm going to do is break them open. And I'm going to make little slices with the bananas and pop them on the top. And I make my own coconut yogurt. And then I'll make a dollop of that so it'll all be all nice and fancy. And the little kids are just like, oh. And that crumble on the bottom, you can make nice little treats. You can either make truffle balls, you can roll them up, or even you can make little squares and bars and you can put them in their lunch boxes, right? So many options, so that when you're preparing, what you're able to do is do numerous, and you can add other little goodies into them, maybe some crunchy, or you could throw in some apricots, dried figs, things like that. There's so many little neat alternatives that you can come up with that your children are going to be like, ooh, can I have another? And you're going to be like, man, this beats going to the store and paying astronomical prices for those what do you call them, the granola bars and things like that, which I used to love. I think it was, what brand was that? There was a particular one that years later I realized, oh my God, they were one of the top GMOs. Can you imagine all the crap I was putting into my body? It was the peanut butter Nature's Own? No? I can't remember, but whatever it was, I'm just going to say this. Looking back, I just hope that my body's healing from this. That it's not still in my body, Because I don't know. How long does it take for your body to heal from some of these crazy things that we've consumed that we didn't know about back then? So these are so yummy too. And so you just how it is. The kids, you can just buy these and the kids will love these.
heck, you know, we can say the easiest things to put in the lunchbox is just a bunch of fruit, because that in itself, unless you have some picky eaters. And you know, they're really just telling you, I feel the children are reflecting where we're at as adults. And so I look at my niece and my nephew with my one sister, and I see they're marrying her back. I see when they're frustrated, and I know it's hard sometimes because we get into a certain mental state that everything is just overwhelming, especially as moms, and you need somebody who can turn around and go, I see you and I know how hard you're working. And I appreciate all of you out there that are moms, because I know that in itself is a role that reflects you, as you know, you're taking on such a responsibility for future generations to nourish these young beings the best you can, right? So that they're going to thrive in the world, and that your legacy is going to shine through them. And so, you know, just remember to just be so kind to yourself and remind yourself you're doing a great job. You're doing the best you can. You just never know. And so on the inside, in between, I have chocolate layered too. But I just put, that was 1 manzano banana. I have 2 types of chocolate coconut. I have chocolate chicory coconut yogurt, and I have vanilla coconut yogurt. And I'm going to do a dollop of both because they're just equally yummy. And I guarantee they're going to taste really flavorful with this. And I love doing this. Because it's simple. It's so simple. And then when, like I said, when you're preparing one, you already have this in mind, and you have the leftovers of the crumble, for example. You make a lot of the crumble that you use for the base, and then you make your bars, or you make the truffles. Nice little snack foods, quick and easy to go. And so here we have the coconut yogurt, the vanilla, and then we have the chocolate chicory. Do you all have any ideas or any specialties of your own that you come up with? Because I'd love to see. I'm going to read more through this group. I'm just grateful that I'm a part of it, because I just want to spread love, and I know how busy the schedules can be, and you know, you're so overwhelmed, you're just looking for quick and easy. But sometimes quick and easy can just be about, you know, and I know you've got to find when you can carve out that time, because children they take up a lot of time. And then a dollop of both. Absolutely delish. Oh my gosh. And I don't know, depending on your children's age, of course, having them being a part of the whole creation, oh my gosh, you get to share that with them and just let them be engaged and allow them to also, hey, what do you think? You want to help mom in the kitchen? And sometimes that's like, they appreciate that extra time with you, right? I know I did when I was growing up. So that's just a simple little snack. I'm going to stick this in the freezer, and then I'm going to eat it later. And then I have a couple of these really awesome molds, BPA free, of course. And these are so cute. Check these out, okay? Kids are so cute. Everything to them is funny and like with children. They get excited about anything new and trying and learning, and that's why I love children, because you get to see something through their eyes that maybe you forgot about, or something new. So we're always really learning through their experience and their expression. These are BPA free. I bought these at Aldi's for maybe $5, maybe even less. The only thing I don't like about these is this little straw thing off to the side, because when I was trying to eat, and I made these with chocolate, so you can do banana and carob. When I was doing this, it was hitting my face. So clearly that was an engineering faux pas. You didn't know exactly what they were doing, right? So then these are adorable because they have little boofies, little poopies, and kids are so cute. They're like when they hear the noises, they make the noises, and they just think it's funny, right? So when you put little characters or emojis on them, it's even more fun. It's more playful, right? So I was thinking to make up some quick. I'll make one up, and you can tell me how this sounds to you, because it's just short and sweet and simple, right? And then I'll pour them in, and I know what I'll have for something to snack on later myself. So again, I have lots of bananas. I'm all about my blender. And there's a couple ways you can do it. You can actually use, if you want, you can use some coconut meat. It kind of changes the texture when you put it into to freeze, so it's a little smoother. Whereas sometimes when you freeze, because if you don't have it, like let's say for example you make banana and ice cream, like an ice cream, you can use frozen bananas and whip it up for your children at night if you want to give them something like a banana ice cream. And that in itself, as an alternative to a popsicle, for example, you can just, so these are fresh, and using them fresh, you can put them in the freezer. But what will happen is, like I was just saying, if you put the coconut meat in there, the coconut meat will create a little smoother of a texture to it. And then when you put the coconut meat, it won't have that kind of crispy, icy sense to it. Whereas if you do this as just bananas, it might be a little icy, kind of more like a sorbet style. So I'm using the Monsanto apple bananas. And like I said, these taste just like apples and banana. Sometimes I'll put dates in with them. If I want sweeter with the regular banana, I'll add dates. But in this case, I'm just going to do bananas, right? A little easier. And some of my other favorite things as far as quick to eat, like if you have a dehydrator, or if you don't, you can always use your oven too. You can dehydrate, you can slice sweet potatoes or yams and just thinly slice and bake them with a little sea salt on them. You don't need to use oil. Depending on what your diet preferably is, whether you believe in refined oils or not, you could use a little avocado oil, or you could use a little coconut oil. I try to reduce the amount of oils that I use, although I was just saying that I did use some coconut oil in the base of those tartlets and the banana cream pie. I like all of my stuff to be as close to whole foods and plant-based as I can get it. Like I said in the beginning, I don't do any breads or any processed sugars or refined flours and such. If anything, I prefer to use something that's whole still as much as possible. And especially because I live in Florida, so every place is going to be different, and I know that everybody has access to different things. I try to go with seasonal fruits and vegetables as much as possible as well. I personally love my greens, And again, I know children go through those phases. They don't necessarily like a lot of their greens. It's like, ooh, I don't like the color, right? And we never know what's influencing why children are averse to something, or they want something all the time. It really takes a lot of patience. I know this. And it takes a lot of attention and really just honing in and navigating, because you're learning that communication with this young being who's trying to express themselves. And so it really comes from within us, that this child is mirroring something within us that we need to learn for ourselves, right? So please let me know where you're from. If you, how old your children are, any struggles you're having, because I love to learn from everyone. And so if you have something, maybe I know, maybe you know, we can collaborate. I like to share, because there's so much wisdom out there. It's just a matter of having that dialogue, right? Especially when you're trying to juggle so much in life. We got so much external stimulation. Can you imagine these young beings coming into this world? These beautiful children are being born into this overstimulation of technology and noises. And I personally don't even like to go out much anymore, just because I get a little rattled just from driving my car with the craziness that's out there. I was in a different space years ago, especially when I was in the military. There was much more of an aggressiveness in that environment than there is in my life now. And now I feel like I'm much more grounded and centered and calmer as a result of recognizing where I was in the past. And I don't mind that I had to go through certain experiences, because it's made me much more patient, first with myself, because the one thing I have learned, it was a beautiful book by David R. Hawkins I read really not that long ago. It was probably, I came across it 8 years ago, just over 8 years ago, Power versus Force. And how we innately have power, and that force is the appearance of having power, but yet it's like, for example, we always say the powers that be. No, it's the powers that force. Governments and all these agencies that try to tell us what we should or shouldn't do, versus us having our own personal strength and power within us to make the choice, or to stand up for what we need to do for ourselves and our families. And power versus force. Beautiful. The beautiful line in there that I learned. Patience starts with self. As does everything. Because if you don't have patience, you can't extend it to others, especially to those beautiful beings that we're nurturing and raising in this life. And in order to give them the patience and the dedication and the time, we have to cultivate that within ourselves. When we cultivate the patience within, the compassion within, the love, the self-love, we nurture that. We're able to nurture that, and we express it in such a way that we're also teaching those children they can embrace the same in themselves. If we don't embody that and set the example, then these beautiful young children that are growing up in the world can't actually do the same. They have to find it through other means if we're not doing it for them. And so this is why I say, I always, for a long time in my life, my stepmother would say to me, "Come on, don't you want children?" And I looked at her and I said, I don't know. And it's not that I do or I don't. I had this fairy tale idea that I wanted to grow up, get my career, get my degree, create this career for myself, and then find the right person in my life and get married and have children and woo, happily ever after, which, wow, wasn't that a lie that we were told, right? Cinderella and Snow White and all of these stories set us all up for this failure because of these expectations that are totally unachievable and unique. And in the end, they never talk about what happened after they got married, the prince and the
princess and all of that. They don't go into the story of what actually transpires when you achieve that so-called destination goal, because it kind of drops off like a cliff, right?
So at some point in my life, I said, you know what? I need to drop that expectation that that's how my life is supposed to unfold. It's what I call the white picket fence syndrome. Because a lot of us women think, oh, we're supposed to have this visual of a life. And then when it doesn't show up, we feel like something's missing. We're grasping for something that doesn't even exist in our lives. Well, of course not, because we've been set up to believe that's what it's supposed to look like instead of embracing what our life actually does look like. And so there's, again, this feeling of loss. So we have to rewrite our story and create it for ourselves. And so in my personal experience, and my stepmother would say, come on, you want children. And she would kind of prod me about it. And I looked at her, I said, listen, when I have children, it's because I want to have them for nurturing and creating this beautiful being that I'm going to dedicate my time, energy, and love for, because I believe that that's a creation out of love. And I know that a lot of us have had these biological clocks ticking and thinking, oh, I need to have a child because that's just part of my biological clock. And, the child is supposed to save a marriage, or the child is supposed to complete me or make me feel whole or make me feel like I am a woman because I can create. And I know that I have friends and family members that were unable to have children, and they feel like they're broken. They feel like they're not whole. They feel like failures. And that's a sadness because it's conditioning from our external environment, thinking that we need to achieve that just because of the role we've been placed in through the media, through all of this external stuff, right? So as a result, I go back to when I have a child, and if I have a child, I know that I will dedicate myself to that as being my mission, to provide a space, a special sacred space for that child to flourish and thrive. And I will be excited if it happens. If not, I'm not attached to it. And that's what I told my stepmother. I said, listen, if I have a child, it's not for the purpose of me feeling complete or that I need to or want to, but because it comes out of an expression of love and knowing it's not for me, but it's for the being that I bring to this life, this world. And so to me, that's something very sacred. And you know what? Doesn't matter if you have a child as a mistake. If you really think it's a mistake, that's how it's going to unfold. But truly, nothing's ever a mistake. It just happens because that's what's meant to happen. And I believe in that wholeheartedly. Thank you, Megan. I truly appreciate that. So, if you have children and you're ever in a moment of impatience, just take a moment to breathe. Breathe fully into yourself. Breathe fully into all of your being. And remind yourself that you created this little one. And to be kind and loving to you first. Because I know mothers out there, you're the first one to be overly critical, to talk down to yourself, to get very like, oh, I shoulda, coulda, wish I. Kindness matters, especially, and it has to start with self. And that little beautiful being is going to see that in you. And when you are kind to yourself, you're giving your child permission to learn and grow with kindness from the inside out. That will be expressed outside in their experiences. And we attract that which we are within ourselves, right? And so when our child may be acting up or discomfort or an upset, that's actually a reflection of what's going on within us. They're mirroring us at all times. Those children are truly there to serve as our teachers as much as we think we're there to train and teach and bring them up. There's this beautiful divine dance that happens with every relationship we have. But children, if you have stuff that you haven't worked on within yourself, that child is going to mirror it to you. they showed up in your life, not just because of whatever happened that you got pregnant, if it was chosen or if it's a mistake or an accident or whatever you want to label it, the label is irrelevant. It's divine and it's perfect because they've shown up to help you as much as you help them. So to me, it's a blessing and something to be embraced, and really every day a moment of gratitude, like thank you so much. Because without this beautiful creation, this expression of myself, how could I learn about me and be able to see it in front of myself? And I know, mothers, you feel it deeper than just in the heart and the belly. You really feel it all throughout you, right? Please do share. I really want to read some of your own testimonies. If you are, I don't know if anybody shares this on the group about how their children actually express them through them. Like how do you see yourself through your child? I think that is beauty in itself. Food is just a small part of it, right? We can teach our children through nourishing with healthy, vibrant, vegan, raw, plant-based foods. But how are we nurturing them with how we think and speak and act, right? So without further ado, we're going to banana it up. Banana time. Let me see. So we've got the bananas. I'm going to push these down. The one thing is I can't get... You know what I like to add? Here's a nice little treat, and it gives it a little bit of a kick. I like to add a little ginger. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add, and I might put some frozen bananas in there because I think I'm going to put some in a bowl for myself as just a, kind of like my banana ice cream. Actually, you know what? I have some frozen jackfruit, which I keep meaning to take out of the fridge and utilize. Y'all might laugh at me. I sometimes leave my refrigerator open. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some of this jackfruit in here, because jackfruit's also kind of like the coconut meat. Jackfruit has a little bit of it's a high-fat fruit, believe it or not. And the cool thing is, being whole foods, it's extremely healing for the gut and the belly. It is beautiful, and especially for me, having had those stomach issues I mentioned in the beginning. Super yummy. It'll give it, again, that little bit of the smoother texture I was mentioning with the coconut meat, right? So I'm going to put that in there, and then I'll put some of the frozen bananas in too, and that ginger. So sometimes I also utilize a vanilla stevia, not for the stevia, not for the sweet, but for the vanilla flavor that it imparts. Otherwise, you can also use a little bit of the vanilla ground, right? I like to, again, I prefer the ground vanilla, but sometimes it's a little bit more expensive and maybe I don't have it on hand. But the alternative for me is this vanilla stevia, and I like this brand because it doesn't leave that nasty aftertaste that stevia tends to have. But I also have stevia growing in my backyard. And the stevia, when you have it by the leaf, is so yummy. Like, I take some of the leaves of the stevia, some of the leaves of some of my mint, and the two together, it's like breath freshener. You don't even need to go buy any breath mints or gum. You just grab some leaves. And it's good for the belly. So I said frozen bananas, of which I wasn't kidding when I said I keep frozen bananas in my freezer. I'm telling you, make banana prepping at night with your children fun. This is going to be kind of noisy because I think this is really frozen. When you take your children, bring your children into the kitchen, let them help you. Children want to feel like they contribute too, and especially if they see you struggling, they feel like they have to help. Children are aware. They know what's going on within you before you do. And if they're acting up, it's usually because they're feeling you. They're very sensitive, very intuitive. And you got to give those children, credit, because if you tune into it, you're going to learn more about yourself than you ever could anywhere else. I've seen it with my sister and my niece and nephew, and the frustration that she deals with because her husband is in the military, and as a result of that, she does have to do a lot on her own. as if she's a single mom. But over the years, he's been deployed and gone to other countries, and I give her serious kudos. She's a strong woman. She tries to do everything herself. She doesn't like to ask for help, and I know what that's like because that's how I was. I'm the oldest of 3 girls, and being the oldest, I've always been the provider, the helper, the try to take care of everyone else because I want everybody to be happy. I like to try to keep the balance. And it's just been my natural expression of being a leader, and also some of my childhood traumas, and when my parents weren't available, I felt like I had to step in to make up for that with my 2 sisters. Because when we were by ourselves, you know, I felt always that responsibility to take care of them. And you know what? I wouldn't trade it for the world because I absolutely adore and love my sisters. And so we do the best we can with what we have, right? So I'm really going to enjoy those because this is going to be a little bit of a different flavor. Again, you can find jackfruit frozen in the frozen aisles at the grocery stores, which is nice. I wouldn't recommend the canned stuff on this. I know they have this stuff here. I have some actually. Now that I think about it. This particular brand, you can use for vegan tacos, sloppy joes, and so much more. This one, it's organic young jackfruit. I haven't opened this can yet, and I've never had it out of a can, and I got this because I'm going to try something new. But I've always bought the jackfruit fresh. Has anybody out there had fresh jackfruit? Tomorrow is market day for me, so I'm going to go down to my local market. It's in Pinellas Park, Florida. I'm in Clearwater. So we're in the Tampa Bay area, and there's a man we call the Jackfruit King. I have to be careful with my fingers. And he brings them over from Miami, actually, because that's where most of the exotic fruits and vegetables grow better. We're a little bit above that freeze line here. So a lot of stuff comes from that southern, more eastern area because we do get that freeze. We get the deep freezes, not deep freezes, but we go under the freezing point. So, let's see if my knife will work. I just have one more little piece I just wanted to get in here. I have to be careful because the past couple days I've been a little accident prone. I have to remind myself to breathe sometimes, right? And that's really what it boils down to, is taking it slow. Even when we think we're in a rush and we need to be somewhere sometime, like really quick, that's when we need to slow it down and breathe the most, right, ladies? And gents, if there are any gents, because I didn't even think that maybe there's probably some single dads in here as well. I would think, you know, it's just as equally necessary for the men who are stepping up and being maybe single dads looking for vegan options for their children, right? We don't always think outside that box. Sometimes we just keep it to where we think we are. Okay, so ginger. I love fresh ginger. Ginger's so good. Again, super healing for the belly, from those little ones who may experience a lot of emotional trauma, turmoil. I know for myself, I really craved my parents' attention, and they were very busy parents and not always available, unfortunately. My dad had a pizzeria. My parents, my mom and my dad, had a pizzeria sub shop. So there was no coincidence that it's just ironic that I grew up with lots of pizza, lots of bread. We used to take the big long sub rolls, you know, and when we needed, you know, everybody thinks of grilled cheeses, and we did grilled cheeses. My sister loved grilled cheeses with the tomato slices in them, but I didn't know that was a contributor to my stomach problems. So with the grilled cheeses, we'd do something similar. We'd take those foot-long subs that my dad had at the restaurant, and he had the pizza ovens, and we'd put cheese in between and stick them in the pizza oven so it would make it crispy and it would melt the cheese. So you get the crunchy of the bread. And if you baked it a little too long, which I did once or twice, what would happen is it would taste like a Cheez-It. Funniest thing, but it actually was kind of good. At least I remembered it to be good. I don't know if I would eat it now. Obviously I wouldn't because I can't, but looking back, we think something tastes good, and then have you ever done that where you go back and you have it again, you're like, it's not what I remembered. I noticed that a lot with a lot of foods for myself. All right, so this is going to require me to push this down when I put it on the blender because I know how this one works. It takes a little bit of coaxing. So pardon the noise. I'm going to blend over here so it's not going to be totally over in your ears. Oh yeah, that's beautiful. Can't even taste the jackfruit. That's my big kid, and he'll get to try this later. That and a puppy dog. So, yeah, the beauty in this, and I'm embarrassed to admit this. This is kind of funny. That for all the years I've had a Blendtec blender, I'm still learning. I'm constantly learning. I know that sometimes what happens is that the actual fruit won't go all the way down into the blender, and I'm sitting here going, I gotta push it down, or there's an air pocket and I gotta shake it up. And I kind of finally figured out how to get the banana to be just right. That's really good. But you know what? I want some vanilla in this. The ginger's amazing. It's very subtle. You can't even feel it. So I'm going to add a little bit more ginger. But again, this is always going to be according to taste. And with children, you just got to figure out what it is they enjoy. And then you just, especially with the crappy food that's out there, if they have something they really, really like, that's processed and you want to get them off of it, you just try to find something that's alternative that they like even better and just keep making lots of that, right? I mean, that's kind of what we do. When I transitioned to vegan, not to vegan, I don't even like to say vegan. The only reason I say that is because I think that it creates a label and a stigma, and sometimes people kind of put you in that box and they don't want to think of you anything beyond whatever their perception is. But when I first transitioned to the whole foods plant-based lifestyle and eliminated a lot of the processed foods, I found that I was craving certain foods. And so my mind went into, well, how can I create the same thing, the same texture, the same flavors, actually even better? And I have had so much fun in my kitchen as a result. So I'm going to add some of the vanilla. And see, I like to add, this is my own little personal secret. I just put a dash of nutmeg because I feel like, and I just went, I feel like ginger, nutmeg, and also cinnamon, but this one I'm not going to put cinnamon. There's something really special about these flavors. And adding the vanilla with the nutmeg seems to me, enhance the flavor of the vanilla. It's like something about the nutmeg for me feels like it brings out the flavors of the vanilla. So I put about 5 drops of the vanilla stevia. Yummy. So I'm excited to see how this turns out. So we have jackfruit, Monsanto, apple bananas, regular Cavendish bananas, ginger, a dash of nutmeg, and then I said the vanilla stevia, right? Okay. So we're just going to blend that up one more time.
And voila, it should be perfect. And then we're going to make the molds.
Oh my gosh. Oh yeah, that's perfect. There's nothing better than simple. Less than 5 ingredients is always the best, but you know, I personally love spices, so I always play with those, and it makes it more than 5 ingredients in the end. So look at how pretty that is, right? I don't know if you can see that as well as I'd like you to. Look at this. Oh, I'm gonna pour this in each of the molds. Oops. And make sure we're not gonna go too high up because I've done that before. Is that true? Oops. It's like catching that perfect wave, right? Anybody out there surfers? Okay, moms out there, I know you all lick. Okay, maybe you don't lick. But when your children don't finish your food, I remember my parents, my mom, here, give it to me, I'll finish it for you, right? And look, if you do it at an angle, you won't get the air pockets. So here we go. And they get to choose their colors, right? There's one. And 2. I'm just moving colors around. And 3. And they all have these cool little emojis on them. Ah! All done. So there's one.
That is so awesome. Actually, I think I could fit it on the door. That's even better. And if you wanted to use the coconut meat, you can buy that frozen in the aisle in the grocery store as well. If you don't have access to fresh coconut, or you don't have the means to open them either, which I've understood, you can actually go and have them cut it when you're at the grocery store at some places. So you can always ask. You know, a lot of times we don't think outside the box. Well, I don't have the you need like a cleaver, or you need a butcher's knife or something, or a coconut jack, let's say, to open up and crack that coconut and then also get the meat out. You can go into these places, always ask. You know, I think that's the hardest thing is for women, especially when you're trying to do it all. You think, oh, I can't ask, I have to do everything myself. Don't be the martyr. Learn to take care of yourself and ask for help. People like to help. And if you give them the opportunity to help you, you're actually allowing them this opportunity to feel like they were able to contribute. So there's this equal exchange that not only do you take the stress off your own shoulders, but you give someone else that gift of feeling blessed and giving pleasure to you, right? Like when someone offers to help you, accept it if you can, if you need it. Because the thing is you're actually gifting them. You know, they're trying to do service for you. And when someone offers, come on. Don't always say no just because of pride. Do it because you're recognizing that they themselves want to make you feel better, and so you want to make them feel better for offering. I know most of my life, especially being military, I was always about, no, I must do it myself. Like, my dad used to say things like, if you want something done right, you should do it yourself. And for some reason, that meant I didn't know how to accept help. I didn't know how to accept a compliment. I just felt like, you know, a lot of these old stories and things in my life contributed to my being overly martyred and doing everything myself. So, all right, there's another one. Sometimes you can't always get all those little bubbles of air pockets out, but it's all good. It's still gonna be yummy. Yummy, 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 I got loving in my tummy. And I'm telling you, this in itself, quick little easy ways to make your children happy
at night when you give them a treat before they go to bed, because that banana is supposed to be very good for relaxing you. It's supposed to be good for before bedtime. In fact, I've understood there's something called banana tea. You can take the whole banana and boil it and then eat the slices afterward. Maybe add some ginger to it as well. And that's good for relaxing you and preparing you to go to sleep. So it's a sweet treat, but it's a healthy treat, and it's nourishing. It's whole foods and plant-based, and your child has something and feels like they got like a little special reward before they went to bed. Finding that perfect spot in my freezer. There we go. Perfect. I have so many goodies in my fridge. So this is going to be my little snack right now. I really enjoyed this. I hope I get a chance to come back and do this again, or I really hope somebody else does this. Thank you so much for the beautiful people here, and I look forward to hearing more and spreading more love and sharing and reciprocating, mutual exchange of beautiful information and insights, recipes, what works for you, and hopefully this helps someone else out there. I love you all. Have a beautiful evening. Thank you. Good night.